Hey Atlanta, Hudson Mason here. Is a new roof still on your to-do list, but you've been delayed due to rising home service costs? Well, here's a fantastic solution from Accent Roofing Service. 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a full year. That's right, you can get your new roof now and start paying next year. Act quickly because Accent's incredible offer of 000 with a 12-month deferred payment option for a lifetime roof system isn't going to last long. Contact the craftsman at Accent Roofing Service today, accentroofingservice.com.
This is an Extra 106.3 podcast. To hear more live and local content like this, tune into 106.3 FM or download the Extra 106.3 app. Extra 106.3 and a Second Chance Bail Bonds are here to back your blue. Back Your Blue highlights special initiatives, criminal justice programs, and community events aimed at keeping our communities safer. Join a Second Chance Bail Bond CEO Daniel Matalon and host Tug Coward to learn some good news about and from the law enforcement and justice communities. Now it's time to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3 FM and the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward, along with Daniel Matalon of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and Monitoring, which does so much great work in the community, and that's the reason we do this show. It is all about bringing attention to great causes, great works that our men and women in the public safety sector of the community are doing, Daniel. So thank you for that, and thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a good day. We have Mike Lutzenkirchen. He is the father of the late Philip Lutzenkirchen, former Auburn University student, athlete from 2009 to 2012, 3-time SEC academic honor roll student, 2 times captain and key player on the 2010 national championship team. My first trip to Auburn University was to see Auburn play Chattanooga 2010. And I was, because I'm born and raised in Northwest Georgia and I'm a Bulldogs fan, that day I was cheering for the Chattanooga Mocs. Now, I was the only one in the building because I grew up just south of Chattanooga, man. I used to go to all the Mocs basketball camps and baseball camps, and I went with all Auburn fans, of course. So just to rib them a little bit, I was cheering for the Mocs because I'm from up that way. But deep down, you couldn't help but cheer for that team because they were incredible, led by Cam Newton, won the national championship. And now looking back, knowing that your son was on that team is an even better reason to cheer for the Auburn Tigers that day and continue to cheer for him a little bit because his memory is so enshrined with Auburn fans. So thank you for being here to talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. Great to be in here to share today.
Yes, sir. And we have a mutual friend in Hudson Mason. Hudson grew up coming to your house.
He did. He was a year younger than Philip, but played quarterback his junior year, had a great year. When Philip was a senior, they played basketball together growing up. And those who knew Hudson love Hudson because of who he is and what he represents.
Yeah, he's just the most happy-go-lucky guy. Got a beautiful wife and 2 sweet kids nowadays, and used to work with us here at Dickey Broadcasting and has now moved over to Chick-fil-A, and he's doing some leadership position, and I noticed you had a little bit of a chuckle when we brought that up.
Well, it's a father's perspective, seeing one of your son's dear friends and knowing who he is. And
yeah.
He's the ultimate gamer, right? He may
Yes, sir.
not have been the greatest guy in the weight room or paying attention in practice, but he just knew how to play, and when the lights went on, he performed.
No doubt about it. Since Philip's passing in 2014, you have served as the executive director of the Lutzie 43 Foundation and made it your mission in life to carry out Philip's legacy. Starting the foundation, you had a career, before starting the foundation, you had a career in sales management, and marketing, including positions at Macmillan Publishing and IBM. So it's not like you're a stranger to having a lot of weight on your shoulders, and I would imagine running a foundation has that same kind of levity to it.
Yeah, prior to founding the foundation, I had not been involved with nonprofits other than, making some investments in them and so forth. And now you run this, and we knew from day one you have to run this like it's a for-profit business. Worry about P&L, worry about your expenses, hiring and firing and doing reviews and so forth. So some days you feel like you have weight, but this is quite frankly God's plan for me to be doing this.
Amen.
And that's when you lose some of the weight. So we're proud of what we're doing. It's hard to believe we're sitting in here in what is the 10-year anniversary of Philip's passing.
Oh, my goodness. Seems impossible. Seems absolutely impossible. Because before I had the pleasure of meeting you, I knew a family, Auburn family. We go to church with them, and they knew Philip well. And their daughter, who actually lost her leg to cancer, talking about the Moody family, they were very, very close to y'all, it seems, and Philip was a mentor to Bailey.
Yeah, that's one of the great stories. I mean, Philip was a junior at Auburn, had already won a national championship. I think he finished third-team All-American that junior year. Had already tested should he come out early. He was told if he came out, he'd likely be a third-round projection in the NFL. Never even really gave thought to it because he had told if he comes back, he'll be a senior. He'll be a captain again for the second time. He thought he could win the John Mackey Award. Thought he could get into the first round of the NFL.
Wow.
Many tight ends don't do that, so I think that was a little bit of a dream. But literally before spring break on a Wednesday, he called and said, hey, I need to come back home from Auburn up to Marietta, opposite direction of going down to 30A, wherever he was going to head for spring break. And all he said was, I need to go meet a young lady. She's about 10 years old. I know she's sick. I don't know what she's sick with, but found out she's a huge Auburn fan, and I'm her favorite player. And it turned out to be, at the time, a 10-year-old Bailey Moody. And if your audience goes and checks it, she's now a senior at the University of Alabama.
That's right.
You know, here's an Auburn kid meeting a young lady that loved Auburn but went to Alabama. And long story short, she was coming to the big decision in her life. I've got to have a surgery done to remove a portion of my leg because of cancer. And the day we met her, Philip came home, and we met her on a cold, chilly day like today. And I kept thinking, he's 20 years old. Is his head, what's he even going to listen, right? What's he going to hear? What's he going to say? And he was a little different that day. He walked in there and put a big hug around her, and I sat with her parents, Patrick and Tiffany, who've become friends. And he heard her version of what was going on. I heard the parents tell me what was going on. And he just befriended her because he had a platform. He had love for young kids. And she ended up having a surgery where they removed the lower portion of her right leg, and now she's on the University of Alabama women's Paralympic wheelchair basketball team. She went to Japan for the Olympics. She's a role model. She wears number 43 because Philip wore 43, and he just developed a bond with her.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And, Daniel, I have pictures of this young lady in our home with my son and her brother, and from going down to Turner Field to see ball games. So this family is so special to me. So we have this kind of unusual bond because I'd never met Philip, but I knew the influence that he had on a family that's dear to me. So it kind of sets up what kind of kid he was.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's remarkable. And Bailey continues to do incredible work, just like you said, the Olympics, the Paralympic team, and all that she does, being on the Alabama wheelchair team. And she has that, I would imagine, drive, the same drive that Philip had. I'm sure he saw that in her, that same drive that he had, and she still has it, even though she had to have this because cancer took her leg. She wasn't going to let that stop her from doing the things that she was intended, the good Lord had planned for her.
Yeah, no doubt. It's amazing. I look back at the funeral, open casket behind us, and I saw Patrick and Tiffany and Bailey walking down. And Patrick, you could tell, wanted to tell me something that day, and he had tears in his eyes and couldn't tell me. And he says, I'll call you. And he called me within a couple weeks, and he says, I want to tell you about what Philip did that you may not know about. Not only did he see Bailey before she had the surgery, he came up 4 or 5 times from Auburn to Atlanta while she was rehabbing. One time it was for 15 minutes. I think the most he ever said he spent with her was an hour and a half. He'd bring a signed soccer ball. He'd bring wristbands and so forth from Auburn Athletics. But he said to Mike, there's a word that describes your son. And one of the things we're proud of, we've done a curriculum called 43 Lessons to Legacy. Tied to that, we've given out 94 $43 scholarships. And we had already gone through to build this character-based curriculum that said, what are words that describe who Philip is? And I thought I had them all. And he said, Patrick said, Mike, there's a word that describes your son. And I never would have guessed it. The word's available. So we think about all the words about people. And when I go do talks, I'll use
brave, courageous, all the words
funny,
like that.
Funny, goofy, servant, willing. But to have available, have somebody tell you at the time your 20-year-old son simply made himself available to support their 10-year-old daughter that turned into a friendship. That's one of the most favorite words in this curriculum we've done because of the meaning of it. So I challenge all audiences, can you be more available? It's not too difficult to be available And that's who, just simply put, that's who Philip was.
It's an incredible term, an incredible example of what Philip was all about. And Daniel, that's something we talk about on this show all the time, is your time is more valuable than your money ever will be. The time, and that's a perfect example of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great attribute. I mean, being available is a powerful thing, because it could make a difference for a lot of people when you don't even realize it.
And did. And so I think it's great that shows up in the curriculum, which we'll get to at some point. But you were born and raised Wheaton, Illinois. Live in Marietta these days. Wife been married 38 years, which is a triumph in and of itself. And a long marriage, I think, is the biggest sign of success that you can possibly have.
Yeah, I think our friends would joke that Mary's had more of a triumph than me. I guess I've been more triumphant that she hasn't said leave or change the locks on the doors. But
that's right.
You know, when you meet somebody in second grade and you look at them, and then you don't go to school together until high school, and then you start dating your sophomore year in high school, date all the way through college, never been on another date. It's a blessing that I've had, and I haven't had to think about it a lot, right? Just we're both Catholics, so we had that going for us, and the chance to move from the Chicago area to Indianapolis with my career, and then Indianapolis down to Atlanta. She was more than willing to do it. I've got 4 beautiful children, and blessed every day.
Tell us about the rest of the family.
So my oldest daughter, Amy's a UGA grad.
How about them dogs?
Yeah, might have been our best athlete physically. Played soccer growing up. Next daughter is Ann. She went to Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and played D1 soccer. She's still in the sports industry. She works for Turner Sports.
Oh, wow.
Got a big role with U.S. Soccer coming to Atlanta and so forth. And then Phil was our third. Could have gone anywhere in the country. High school All-American, just fell in love with Auburn. He went down there very easily. Told Georgia, don't worry about recruiting me because I'm not going to even look at Athens. And then our youngest one, we jokingly say, is our little hellion. It's hard to believe Abby's 31 now, but Abby could have gone anywhere in the country as a soccer player, U.S. national soccer team, 17 but she chose to go to Alabama because she became the first big recruit, Alabama soccer, coming out of the Atlanta area. And this is such a hotbed for youth soccer, and she thought she could help build the program and had a wonderful experience there. So there's the 4 kids.
Yeah, I've never been to Tuscaloosa, but I've been to Auburn, and Auburn is truly the most beautiful college campus I think I've ever seen in my whole life. It's impossible to go to Auburn and not fall in love with it.
Yeah, they're all great campuses, quite frankly. And you know, Philip, he went to a Nike recruited camp as a senior, junior over there, and never looked at it, and used to joke about, you know, Alabama, I'll never wear crimson, but that year he was playing in the NFL, he had a chance to come to 2 of Abby's games, and he made him pink out when it was pink games for breast cancer awareness, so he could wear a pink top. But he even said, we did a run one day out there and said, Dad, this is an incredible campus. I never gave it great value, but it's a pretty incredible campus.
When we come back on Extra 106.3 and Back Your Blue, we're going to talk to you about Philip's legacy and the legacy that you want to leave with people that hear the discussion and hear the more than 420 times you've delivered this message. Next on Extra 106.3, Atlanta's only conservative news and talk station.
Hey Atlanta, Hudson Mason here. Is a new roof still on your to-do list, but you've been delayed due to rising home service costs? Well, here's a fantastic solution from Accent Roofing Service. 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a full year. That's right, you can get your new roof now and start paying next year. Act quickly because Accent's incredible offer of 000 with a 12-month deferred payment option for a lifetime roof system isn't going to last long. Contact the craftsman at Accent Roofing Service today, accentroofingservice.com.
It's March, and we all know what that means. College basketball.
I know there are teams looking for a bump, but did you know that our friends at LGE Community Credit Union have a bump rate program for their CDs? If you have a CD with them and rates increase during the term, you have one chance to bump your rate, giving you the power to earn even more.
Take it from a pair of 680 The Fan wives. Head to lgeccu.org to find out what makes LGE number 1 in Georgia.
This is Back Your Blue, presented by A Second Chance Bail Bonds, live on Extra 106.3 FM and streaming for free anytime on the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tuck Howard, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and Monitoring. And we've got Mike Lutzenkirchen from the Lutzie 43 Foundation this morning on the show. And y'all are nearly neighbors.
Yeah, funny enough, how I learned about the Lutzie 43 Foundation was my wife, born and raised in Marietta, and she's like, I want the kids to go to Lassiter High School. So we ended up building a house in the Lassiter district, and of course, naturally, my son and daughter both are. Well, my daughter's no longer in that school system. My son is, and so heard all about it. If you live in the Lassiter High School district, you know about the Lutzie 43 Foundation. So
yeah,
that's how I first came to learn about it.
Yeah, and it's been such a blessing for so many people. Mike, you've delivered more than 420 Philip Legacy, What Legacy You're Leaving talks over to about 285,000 people. Those are staggering numbers.
Yeah, it's word of mouth. It's unfortunately we're trying to address an all too familiar topic and what's going on roadways. The number of crashes, injuries, and fatalities. Every time you look at a reporting period, whether it's Labor Day of this year over last year, or it's the fourth quarter of this year over the prior year, the statistics are going the wrong direction in every category. So it's for drivers, passengers, pedestrians, bicyclists, and I truly believe the government's doing a very impactful job at trying to make roadways safer, make us all safer, but the numbers are going the wrong way. So I think my role is to try to challenge the narrative and say, how can we change this?
And what have you discovered through this, delivering the messages and dealing with government entities and looking at those numbers? What have you stumbled upon? What stands out to you? We
had a key moment. We shared a little bit earlier. This is our 10th anniversary of Philip passing away. He passed away June 29th of 2014. In theory, the foundation started the next morning when I went on a run at an area in Roswell, Georgia, early in the morning, just as if it was God was right there with me, and Philip saying it's going to be all right. And I didn't know all the details yet, other than he was dead, that one of his friends died. They were in a single vehicle crash in rural LaGrange, Georgia. And then God saying, what are you going to do with this? And Philip had created a platform as a student athlete at Auburn for what he did off the field as much as he did on it. But a pivotal moment came to us in the late 2017 when somebody asked me two key questions. Are you proud of what you've accomplished with the foundation, and are you concerned about Philip's relevancy? And was already, contemplating those questions. Come out of an IBM career where you felt good about making your number, boy, when you knew that next year was coming, that number was going to be greater. So that joy went away really quickly. So I knew we could be doing more. And at that point, we'd already gone all over the country, 200-plus talks and so forth. The relevancy thing was real key. To give your audience perspective, I do a talk every year at Auburn each semester to a program called Auburn Man. They require all the first-year fraternity members to go to a 6-week series of 1-hour talks. I've kind of become the de facto closeout speaker, and we show a video that Auburn Athletics created for Philip's memorial service. And when you get done showing that video, I've now gotten smart to ask the question, raise your hand if you knew who Philip was before that video. And this past fall, 900 students at Auburn, maybe 5% of the hands went up. So the relevancy thing was important to us. Long story short, we looked at things and said, the government's created programs like Click It or Ticket, You Text, You Pay, Drive Sober, Pulled Over. I'm confident your audience has heard of those.
Oh, of course, yeah, all of them.
Unless somebody funds it and puts it on a billboard or on a radio campaign, you don't hear it. But I think they're impactful, but more importantly, they're singular in nature. And when Philip lost his life and the driver lost his life, there was super speeding involved. There was well after midnight driving involved. All the kids were drunk. The one young man that did a 2-second hab in his life where he put a seatbelt on, he survived the crash. All the other 3 either died, fully ejected, or partially ejected. The third person that survived it, she was read her last rites. So they at one point thought she was leaving us. Philip was fully ejected. The driver was partially ejected. So there's all these elements that come into play, and we looked at it and said, well, what's the symbol that we would all look at that would trigger us to be smarter and safer drivers? And there is no symbol. When you ask that question in an audience, whether it's a second grader through middle school, high school, college, adults, most people want to come around and say, well, it's a phone. It's a phone in a circle with a slash through it. Well, that's distracted. Has nothing to do with driving at 2 a.m. or after midnight as a teen. Has nothing to do with super speeding or seatbelt use or eating with something on your lap. So we thought, what if we created a symbol? Could it become an image? So we took the 43, which is somewhat of a unique number in athletics, put it on a key. It says 43 key seconds. On the opposite side, it says 43 too distracted free. And it just exploded. And then we had companies and colleges and high schools coming and saying, can we put our logo on one side of the key? Can we put it on the lanyard that the key hangs on? And can we put it on the checklist card you've created? So we've created a checklist that says before you start your vehicle, no matter who you are, where you're driving, what you're driving, or your experience or what time that you're driving, do have a clear head, clear hands, clear eyes, and then we do tie into the 20-year program of click it or ticket by saying click it. And there's details behind all that, but that's kind of where we've gone with the mission of the foundation.
And that goes back to 2018 when all this came about.
Correct.
Yeah. And then what are the protected by 43 seconds? I know it's a mission to reduce the number of crashes. Is that the comprehensive layout with the logo? Is that what that is, spelling it all out?
Well, it is, and that actually narrows us into another area in the private sector. It's the trucking and transportation space. There's a company over in Birmingham, Alabama called McLeod Software. I look for things called God winks in my life. They've got a decal that they've had their clients put on the back of their tractor trailers. It's 24 inches long by 18 inches high, so it's rectangular, and it says 3 lines on it. Powered by McLeod Software and their website. And I'm thinking, wow, it just sticks out. It's visible. What if we came up that said protected by the shape of our key, 43 key seconds in the middle of the decal and on the bottom of our website? And now you put them on trucks, the back of a tractor, the back of a trailer, and you've got mobile advertising going on.
And I can only imagine, since Mike has spoken to over 285,000 people about this, how many more people are impacted by that logo that are just driving up and down the road on multiple trucks? How many more people? Like 285,000 seems like a staggering number, but think about how many people those cars or those trucks rather pass on a daily basis. Let's say a small percentage of them actually take the time and read it and notice it and then take it a step further and then go and find out what it is.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the numbers are staggering, probably. I mean, yeah, it reaches a lot of people.
How many? Do you have an estimate? Do you have a guesstimate of how many hundreds of thousands of people see that a year now?
Yeah, I'm actually hesitant to even give you a number because I can't. But what I'll tell you, it's a common theme of what we're doing, whether we go to apply for a grant from a private organization or a public entity. There is no grants or no causes that look at roadway safety as the private sector's responsibility. So the tough thing I tell people, they say, what's your return on investment in this marketing initiative or this, that, and that? I go, how do you measure something that doesn't happen? So in other words, if we go in,
it's an incredible question.
If we go and present, so there's kind of cool tomorrow. We've partnered with the Georgia Department of Transportation, proud of the partnership. And this is, long story short, unfortunately, Lakeside High School in DeKalb County has lost 5 students this school calendar year in 3 separate vehicular crashes. 3 were killed at 3:30 in the morning, Labor Day weekend. There was a young lady killed back in February, and there was most recently, early last week, another student passed away. There's some similarities in their crashes. They're all young teens. They're all inexperienced. There was speeding involved. There was seatbelt usage or not involved. But I go back again. We're going to do an assembly tomorrow.
There at the school?
At Lakeside High School from 2 to 3. It's going to be unlike any talk I've ever delivered. I've got to be very cautious that I'm going to honor these 5 young lives that have been lost. But Lakeside, the community, the district, the leadership, the parents are saying, we've got to continue to honor these kids, but how do we get ahead of this? How do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? So they've asked me to come in and talk with our partnership with GDOT, and we're going to tell them about 43 key seconds. We're going to talk about seatbelt use and driving well after midnight. We're going to talk about impairment. We're going to talk about distractions. I'm a firm believer we're not doing a good enough job in this country of telling that young teen passenger, you're just as important in that vehicle as that young teen driver. What your actions are can dictate what that driver does with peer pressure and things of that nature. We're going to address that. There's no campaign that's talking about nobody should be on our roads after midnight unless it's a job requirement or an emergency. And yet, 4 of these 5 kids lost their lives well after midnight. And the question I've got, why are you out? So we're going to do our best job tomorrow to honor these 5 students, but position what is 43 key seconds, what does the checklist, the countdown mean, and give you a tool to be braver to talk to your peers and say, I'm not going to do that, to have a conversation with your parents to say, Mom or Dad, if you've been distracted or not wearing seatbelts, please start changing. So 43 key seconds is about behavioral change and making us smarter, more courteous drivers when we're in the vehicle.
Mike, sometimes brutal honesty is the most impactful thing you can do, just being brutally honest. And I know you have to do that with some sort of delicacy at the same time. It's a balance. I don't envy the job that you're going to do, because you want to honor these students, but at the same time, being brutally honest about what happened, why it happened, may prevent the next incident from occurring. So I think sometimes we do kid gloves too much, even with kids.
We do. And again, as we talk about back in the blue, right, we've established relationships with the Georgia State Patrol, with county sheriffs, with city police, with school resource officers. Tomorrow's event at Lakeside High School is a little different. We're not going to have law enforcement involved. I'm confident these kids in that school have been beaten down a little bit about, here's how your classmates lost their lives. Here's what you've got to be doing a better job of. Tomorrow I can come in and show this video that Auburn created. So they're going to see who Phillip was, the person, which is important when I talk. Who's this 60-year-old guy going to come in and you don't know who he's talking about. So them to have the visual who Phillip was, that's going to give me the opportunity to say, even at 23, he was a little bit older than that audience tomorrow at the high school.
Not by much.
But here's the things that Phillip did wrong. Here's what his friends did wrong. And I can get the messages across through Phillip's life. And I go back again. You wouldn't know that in our state we passed a hands-free law July 1st of 2018 when you drive the roadways. Just coming in here from East Cobb, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of a stretch on 75, Johnson's Ferry. The number of adults you see on their phones, even though we have a hands-free law. Tomorrow's going to give me the opportunity for these kids to say, we've got to make these changes in honor of these kids, and we're going to do that. But when I go, for example, Thursday, we're delivering a 5-hour safe driving summit at Madison County High School, north of Georgia. And again, what do you wake up today in the paper? AJC, a running back got picked up for a DUI over the weekend, right?
That's right. Yep.
Kind of some ongoing challenges with UGA football, and that's not a criticism. It's just right now what's happening.
Just the truth.
But we're going to go to Danielsville, and there we're going to have Lieutenant Maurice Raines with the Georgia State Patrol, the local county sheriff, the local city police, the school resource officer. They will deliver a breakout called Getting to Know Law Enforcement. And there's no slides used. There's no video. They're simply going to get up there in their uniforms and say, here's my jurisdiction. Here's my role at a crash. Here's how I partner with all the other first responders. But most importantly, here's what we're seeing of teenage drivers at the state, county, city level.
I would imagine, and Daniel, you can probably speak to this too, when you're a star football player, you are invincible. You see it with star football players all the time. They have been able to overcome things that they're not supposed to overcome. Maybe it's injury. Maybe it's they've been told that they can never, you're never going to play at this level, and then they do. Or whatever. Or maybe they've just been a star their entire life, and they've been told that they're the greatest of all time, and that makes them invincible. But then reality hits, life hits, and all of a sudden we realize that people aren't invincible.
Yeah, no, this topic, we have friends that, I even myself, when I was a kid, I lost a friend of mine that was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
In a driving accident. We have friends here locally in Cherokee County, same thing. Their daughter was at Woodstock High School, student, passed away. My daughter gets her license in 2 weeks. So, this is, this is kind of a sign for me, hey, I'm going to have this conversation,
Which is smart.
In the next few days.
It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. And
because Invincible, I see it with all these kids that are athletes, and my daughter's an athlete, and they literally are just living, and it's not intentional. It's just, this is just the way kids are and how it's evolved. But yeah, this is a huge and extremely important topic.
Mike, I'm sure you've seen that too, that invincibility that kids think they have. Maybe Phillip thought he had that invincibility. Maybe the person that was driving had that same. I don't know if it's life experience or life inexperience. I don't know what, because I was the same way. I remember riding my four-wheeler when I was a kid, miles away from my home, jumping anything that was still. Yeah, I would try to jump over everything. I went through every creek and river with my four-wheeler. And at that point, I flipped over the handlebars a dozen times. I crashed that thing a dozen times. I thought I was invincible, and I wasn't a good athlete. So I think it may be just an life inexperience thing.
I don't think you have to be an athlete to think you're invincible, right? And then, again, What I try to tell teens is you're like the audience tomorrow. You kids have a responsibility that it's a right. It's a privilege. I'm sorry, not a right. And that's the freedom now to be in a car without an adult driving it. But you're a new, inexperienced driver. And once you get past the Georgia Graduate Driver's Law, the GDL, you can have teens in there. And again, I go back. I don't think we're doing a good enough job nationally that say you as that passenger in that vehicle and your actions in the passenger seat or the back seat are going to influence how your friend drives that vehicle. If we all got in a car, I'd be shocked if somebody didn't put a seatbelt on, right? I'd be shocked if you became a super speeder. We've matured into we don't need that as much now. The whole use of phones in cars is
different story altogether.
That's a different story, but no, unfortunately, I look at the AJC every day. I look at Alabama.com. I got a lake house in Lake Hartwell near Clemson, so I was looking at Clemson men's basketball in the tournament.
Yeah,
nice win last night.
Sure.
But you go to YFF News out of Greenville, and there's usually one of the top 5 lead stories is another death on our roadways. And this morning, single vehicle crash, 36-year-old male, no seatbelt. A seatbelt is a 2-second habit in our life, and yet many don't do it. And over 60% of these fatalities and crashes, they're able to go back and say there was no seatbelt use. So, you talked about Woodstock High School. There were 4 young teens that were driving 94 miles an hour a couple months ago up in the heavy area of the golf course area there in Woodstock, Town Lake Center area. One was from Lasser. A young man from Pope lost their lives. The connection of these 4 kids, they all played club soccer together, but they went to different high schools. What we're trying to do with our mission is to get to the leaders of those high schools and say, we think we can help. Roadway safety to me breaks down to 3 simple things. It's infrastructure, it's the vehicle, and it's people. We don't touch infrastructure. Our partners, Georgia Department of Transportation, does that. We don't touch the vehicles. Our goal is, can we go create behavioral change? And we do that through images. In our country, what really triggered us on this 43 key seconds is there was no image that we'd all look at and say, that's the trigger. It's a long shot, right? How do we take this key and get it beyond Georgia, get it beyond the Southeast and go nationally? But that's our big, hairy, audacious goal, the old BHAG, if you will.
Yeah.
That's our big goal. And that's what I wake up every day trying to think of. How do we push this forward to build awareness, to create safer drivers, which will start to reduce the number of crashes and fatalities. And partnering with the Blue and Back in the Blue is so important for us to get this done.
And creating those relationships, because for the last few years, law enforcement, I think unfairly, has been targeted. And saying, hey, these folks are not on your side. They're not your friends. They're there to maybe treat you wrong. And I'm not saying law enforcement's perfect. I would never say that, because nobody's perfect. Outside of one, there's nobody perfect. And I want to think in our country that that's starting to come back around a little bit. Do you see that as relationships are starting to form, specifically through the foundation, but just in general too, that people are going back and going, you know what, our police officers are actually doing good work?
Yeah, I think, Tug, in every industry you look at, every walk of life, there's a bad apple or some people that are doing the wrong things. But majority, I think most people do the right things. So I look at our partnerships. We think there's a huge opportunity to leverage the trucking and transportation industry, the logistics industries that are putting these vehicles out there on a daily basis. That gives you mobile marketing capability. And I'll give you an example. This partnership with GDOT. We've now established a new partnership with the Georgia State Patrol Motor Carry Compliance Division. Those are your troopers that have responsibility to make sure commercial vehicles are safe, that drivers are safe. So they're interacting with these drivers all the time. And if you think about that for a minute, right? In the trucking industry, they've got a bad reputation of these lawyers going after them, right? I would tell you that 9 out of 10 professional truck drivers are safe. They're the stewards of the road. They're the ones that they're following protocols. What we're trying to do with the young kids at these summits is you're now a new young driver. Do you even know what a blind spot is when you're driving next to a big tractor trailer? Do you even know what a stopping distance is? You've got to give them the space, because no matter how good those truck drivers are, they're driving an 80,000-pound vehicle versus us who are driving like 4,500-pound vehicles. So what we did there is we bring in 2 tractor trailers to these summits, and we place Georgia Motor Carry Compliance Division, MCCD vehicles that are logoed in the blind spots of these vehicles. You've got a professional driver educating the kids at the front of the truck. You've got a uniformed law enforcement MCCD trooper in the back educating. We're now taking a CDL driver who gets policed by the MCCD and putting them together to show they want to work together. That's where we think, again, the whole backing the blue and getting with the private sector and the public sector together. If we do this right, we think we can change the narrative and reverse the deaths that are going on our roadways.
Are you seeing those relationships with those young kids and those officers at specifically events like that? Are you seeing those relationships change and for the better?
I am. I mean, you got to realize these summits are high school kids, 14 to 18. So when you do the law enforcement breakout, you're going to get some knucklehead that's going to ask questions about how many times they stop for donuts, right? But the police do a good job of like, oh, yeah, we do once a day, or they'll take it
Laugh
a little bit,
off, yeah.
But then they bring it back and say, here's why we're here. You know, in our story, the truth of Philip, we were at Mass the morning that Philip lost his life, and we returned home in East Cobb and Lasser's district. My wife noticed on our front door what turned out to be a Post-it note. And when she got out, short of going in the driveway, in the garage, Mary went to the front door. I pulled in the garage. I had two of my daughters with me at the time. I vividly remember turning around the back seat and saying to Amy and to Ann, where was Philip last night? I knew where Abby was, and it was a very odd answer. They said they didn't know. So now we're getting the house, and Mary brings this Post-it note, and all it said on it was, please call a number, and it was a 706 area code. I knew right away that wasn't good. I knew right away that was somewhere in Troup County or LaGrange. Long story short, finally got to the coroner of Troup County. That morning he said, Mr. Lutzenkirchen, there was a crash last night and Philip is dead. That's how we learned of Philip passing away, through a Post-it note. And if Lieutenant Maurice Raines can get in here someday, there's a God wink here. He was the troop commander over Troup County at that time.
Wow.
And sent one of his state troopers 90 miles to our house.
Wow.
To tell us. And when that trooper sat in front of our house for 30 minutes and we didn't answer the door because we were at church, that trooper put a Post-it on that front door.
It's absolutely powerful.
Every summit we do, Tug, Maurice apologizes to the students that he wished his trooper had never done it. And I keep telling him on the sidebar, God's got a plan. We're together on this. Let's go make a difference on this. Thank you for honoring Philip. You don't need to apologize for me.
How do we continue to honor Philip's memory? We'll talk about that next. And how can we grow the brand, the Lutzie 43 Foundation brand, to impact more students and more young drivers? We'll talk about that next on Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3.
Hey Atlanta, Hudson Mason here. Is a new roof still on your to-do list, but you've been delayed due to rising home service costs? Well, here's a fantastic solution from Accent Roofing Service. 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a full year. That's right, you can get your new roof now and start paying next year. Act quickly because Accent's incredible offer of 000 with a 12-month deferred payment option for a lifetime roof system isn't going to last long. Contact the craftsman at Accent Roofing Service today, accentroofingservice.com.
Returning to Metro Atlanta, April 26th to the 28th, the Mitsubishi Electric Classic, presented by Venture, is Georgia's only PGA Tour Champions event. Enjoy local craft brews and scenic views of the par 3 11th hole and an exciting atmosphere at the Perch. Pick your favorite hole to watch along the ropes or find public seating throughout the course. Children 15 and under receive complimentary tickets with purchase by an adult. Join the party at TPC Sugarloaf in Duluth, Georgia. Tickets available at MitsubishiElectricClassic.com/tickets.
Extra 106.3 and a second chance bail bonds are here to back your blue. Now back to the show on Atlanta's only conservative news and talk station, Extra 106.3.
Welcome back. Final segment of Back Your Blue with Daniel Madelon of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and Monitoring, which I've added in because that's something y'all do.
That is, yep.
It's something that is important and something that is changing the way that your business operates, right?
Yeah, basically keeping, there's been a lot of jail overcrowding conversations and stuff around the country and kind of alternatives to incarceration. So just, not everybody belongs in jail all the time. And these are solutions even for youth programs and stuff, just to kind of, humanize people a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking to Mike Lutzenkirchen, Lutzie 43 Foundation, in honor of his son's memory, his son Philip's memory. Let's talk a little bit about the summits that y'all are doing and how many people you're touching. And I want to talk about this cool little packet you handed. I assume that everybody goes to a summit gets one. That's
right. So we established a relationship March of 2022. It's hard to believe it's 2 years with the Georgia Department of Transportation. There was new money that came out of the Biden bipartisan bill that was directed towards roadside safety. And I go back again, I said, infrastructure is an element of roadside safety. That's really GDOT's expertise. These are brilliant engineers, and they're putting roundabouts in or rumble strips and so forth. They will tell you that they can engineer safety in the roadways. Then the human part comes in, right? And we're driving 75 in a 45, or we're driving 60 in a 30, or we're not following protocols. So that's where we come in, and we believe with the human behavior. But GDOT learned of a summit that we were delivering in Alabama where I'm just a keynote speaker called Your Keys to Drive. And that's through a partnership and a friendship that's developed with Children's Healthcare of Alabama. And I said for a couple of years, why are we not doing this in Georgia where I live? Andrew Heath, who is one of the lead engineers in the state for GDOT, Little Godwink, Auburn grad, Little Godwink, Lassiter grad, and we invited him to a summit that we did at the Arthur Blank Family Foundation back in late 2018 that led to this partnership. And we're delivering these 5-hour safe driving summits across the state of Georgia. It's 300 kids or more that come in, or we're now doing them on campuses. So this Thursday at Madison County High School, we'll do a 75-minute all-school assembly for 1,500 students. There's multiple elements to that opening portion of it. We wrap it up with law enforcement led by Georgia State Trooper, Madison County Sheriff, Danville City Police. A school resource officer will be welcomed on stage as Lieutenant Maurice Raines with GSP reads a script of an actual teen crash. As he's reading that, we project what that crash site looked like. And it's a horrific scene. But you've also got fire, EMS, air evac, a wrecker service, and Georgia's hero and champ units that do roadside assistance. All these 9 professionals in uniform will go up and say, here's my role and responsibility at a crash like this. 350 kids that have been picked by the principal up there, Dr. Epps. They'll rotate through 4 30-minute breakouts. One's a law enforcement breakout. There are 2 healthcare. We actually do a reenactment of a teen coming into a trauma center, an emergency room. There's 3 step and repeats that show the inside of that emergency room, and there will be 8 to 10 professionals in uniform led by an emergency room surgeon, anesthesiologist, multiple nurses. And we'll bring in an acting student that was in this crash. And they'll roll that student out after the doctor says, here are the 10 most commonly used medical instruments we're going to use in and around your body. And we can't drug you because of the natures we know of the injuries. It's amazing. You have a couple kids that can't sit through that. And I don't believe in scared straight, but this is the reality of what it looks like. That student is then wheeled off for surgery. They reverse the step and repeats to show what that emergency room looks like now after all this work was done in this situation. A second breakout is you've now survived the crash, the emergency room visit, 1 or more surgeries. What's a rehab look like? And you get kids in there like, oh, yeah, this can't be difficult. Well, one little lesson like, if you should be getting an XL T-shirt, we give you a medium-sized T-shirt. It's inside out. We tell you to sit on your dominant hand, take your less dominant arm, and now put that shirt on inside, right side out, and put it on. You should see how impactful that is for kids to realize this is not going to be easy. And you don't even have to go in to say, you're 17 years old. Can you imagine now?
The rest of your life.
The parents having to shower you to help you go to the bathroom, to help you get dressed. And then the 4th breakout is we do bring in these 2 80,000-pound tractor trailers and let these kids learn, go in the cab, see what the driver's perspective is, learn that at 65 miles an hour, I need 150 yards to stop or I'm going to hit you. Learn that I've got a regulator or governor on my vehicle that doesn't allow me to go more than 65. And if I want to pass a truck that's going 62, I'm not deliberately slowing down in the left lane to pass them. I can't go that much faster. So at the end of this, we think we're giving these kids a reason to believe and a reason to make behavioral change. And in that packet you have there's a duplex 5x7 card, information on the foundation, QR code to go to the foundation. But it has our checklist on there: clear head, clear hands, clear eyes, and then click it and the details behind it. And not to take your audience through the whole thing, but what does a clear head means? It means before you start your vehicle, you ask yourself, am I drug impaired, alcohol impaired, am I fatigued, am I technology impaired, or am I emotionally impaired?
Or more, or multiple of them.
That's right.
I'm sure.
But that's impactful from a 15-year-old chomping at the bit to get their permit through somebody 65 and older. But then in it, there's a lanyard that has our GDOT logo, our partners there, GDOT, their Drive Alert Arrive Alive campaign. And that particular example, Tug, you have, there's also, you'll see the Georgia Motor Carry Compliance Division logo. Sure. And it's attached to the countdown. the goal is you memorize that countdown. You then remove the card, and that key and lanyard go around your rearview mirror as that in-vehicle image that is going to trigger behavioral change.
Reminder.
And what we see is it gives a high school kid the courage to tell their friends, no, I'm not going to super speed. Show you how fast I can get my dad's pickup truck going. Gives them the courage to say, put your seat belt on the back seat. Although it's mandatory up till age 18, it's not for adults. It gives them courage to stand up for making better decisions with the responsibility of driving a vehicle. As importantly, when I go to talks, it's amazing. You ask a teenage audience, raise your hand if you've driven in the last week. Hands go up. Leave your hand up if you've been a distracted driver in the last week.
Every one of them should go up.
They do, but some come down, right? But the one question is, take all your hands down. Raise your hand if in the last week mom or dad have been driving you and they've been a distracted driver. And they shoot up like you wouldn't believe.
Sell mom and daddy out.
That's right, real quick, right? So I tell them, in the most respectful way you can as a child to your parents, have this conversation at dinner tonight.
Yeah.
You heard this man talk. You can bluntly tell him, his son is dead, and this is what 43 Key Seconds is all about.
Mike, as we get ready to wrap up, about a minute and a half left, how do other schools get the program in front of their students?
Go to our website, Lutzie, Lutzie 43.org. You'll find out about it. My daughter who works for us, Melinda may not forgive me. I'll give you my cell number. It's 770-331-6999. Call me. I'll answer it. And we'll tell you about how I come do a talk at your school. We'll tell you how you get in rotation to host a summit.
I assume that would be the same if somebody wants to volunteer.
Absolutely.
Because I bet you need some of those too, don't you?
We do, and I'll close with this for you. We're excited. This Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're doing one of our give backs. I go back again. Philip had a heart for young kids that were challenged physically, mentally, either born that way or somehow got cancer.
Yeah.
We will do our 6th year of what we call the Cobb County School District Elementary School Adapted PE Field Days. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday morning we'll be at Kennesaw Mountain High School. Thursday morning we'll be at Osborne High School, and Friday we'll be at Phillips School, his alma mater at Lassiter. Every K through 5 special needs student will come to a field day where we just love on them for 2 hours. They run on the fields. There's 20 stations set up. Volunteer. Osborne High School will have 200 kids in our ROTC program. Volunteer on these kids. We try to encourage the staff that loves on these kids every day. Take a break. Let these kids love on them. You sit back for 2 hours, and let's just let these kids go and have fun. It's dynamic. If your audience wants to come to one of these 3 events, they're welcome to come to it.
There you go. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time today and for the hard work that you're putting in, man, because it means something.
Well, I appreciate the sponsorship that you're doing to back the blue, and honored to be a part of this and be here and share with your audience today.
Absolutely. Daniel, thank you as always for making it happen. This is Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. Have a great weekend.
This is an Extra 106.3 podcast. To hear more live and local content like this, tune into 106.3 FM or download the Extra 106.3 app.
Hey Atlanta, Hudson Mason here. Is a new roof still on your to-do list, but you've been delayed due to rising home service costs? Well, here's a fantastic solution from Accent Roofing Service. 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a full year. That's right, you can get your new roof now and start paying next year. Act quickly because Accent's incredible offer of 000 with a 12-month deferred payment option for a lifetime roof system isn't going to last long. Contact the craftsman at Accent Roofing Service today, accentroofingservice.com.
Springtime is here. Looking for a fun weekend with family, friends, and the kids? The Mitsubishi Electric Classic, presented by Venture, Georgia's only PGA Tour Champions event, returns to Metro Atlanta April 26th to the 28th. Pick your favorite hole to watch along the ropes or find public seating throughout the course. Children 15 and under receive complimentary tickets with purchase by an adult. Join the excitement at TPC Sugarloaf in Duluth, Georgia from April 26th to the 28th. Tickets available at MitsubishiElectricClassic.com/tickets.
It's March, and we all know what that means. College basketball.
I know there are teams looking for a bump, but did you know that our friends at LGE Community Credit Union have a bump rate program for their CDs? If you have a CD with them and rates increase during the term, you have one chance to bump your rate, giving you the power to earn even more.
Take it from a pair of 680 The Fan wives. Head to lgeccu.org to find out what makes LGE #1 in Georgia.